Nicole, what other, Miles Guo back in November 27, 2022, talked about the CCP's control in the Middle East, and that Xi Jinping had already taken over Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and there was another disturbing report that came out today about ports, where they control, the Chinese are really trying to control the waterways. Is that not true?
Well, yes, it's according to the Washington Post report that the CCP now controls 105 ports globally in more than 50 countries, and that includes many strategic choke points in the Persian Gulf, in Red Sea, and for example, the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, Panama Canal, and those ports are usually near the U.S. military base. For example, in the Haifa port in Israel, that's where the U.S. Sixth Fleet is based. So the CCP has been placing their military presence in those waterways and ports, and they're controlling 105. And so this is very concerning because even though America still enjoys the greatest military power, but when the CCP controls those strategic choke points and water ports, that will become a significant threat in times of war because that will affect our troops and our movement and navigations around those very important ports.
Nicole, that's all part of the Belt and Road Initiative, correct? Set up by Chairman Xi. Would that be a correct statement?
Absolutely. That's exactly the maritime aspect of the Belt and Road Initiative that was started exactly 10 years ago by Xi Jinping. And when he first started this project, the West did not take it very seriously. Now we're seeing that the end product of this BRI project is to create a global threat to U.S. and our allies. But it's never too late to amend the fence that, if we have a strong leadership in the White House and in both Senate and House, we can actually deter the CCP by decoupling our economy from the CCP and strengthen our military. But most importantly, we should close our border to begin with because now there's so many Chinese migrants showing up and we don't know who these people are.
Absolutely. They're unvetted and ultimately they're taking jobs away from Americans. And ultimately we need to bring and reindustrialize America again. I think that's part of making America great again is bringing work and infrastructure and industry back to this country.
What about the electric cars that
yes,
Gavin Newsom was so excited about? He was going to buy two, and I think they were extremely expensive. I can't remember the cost, but so California let the Chinese, the CCP, grid California with these automatic electric cars. Correct? Am I right on that?
Yes. Gavin Newsom are allowing the CCP-controlled self-driving cars to do the road testing in California, collecting important data and send back to Beijing. It's like the Israelis allowing the Hamas militant group to do the self-driving tests in Israel to collect the data to be used for the terrorist attack.
Nicole, one of the other things that is really concerning that kind of goes with the theme of today, which is the undue influence of the CCP in this country, is that the U.S. Should start banning drones that are being purchased by the U.S. businesses that are made by the CCP. So again, if we're worried about, they've got our comms, they're buying land by our military bases, they're telling their Chinese students that are here in this country to protest at will, they're stealing technology information, and if that's not enough, it slices, it dices, they're now and have been selling drones made in China to U.S. citizens. So what could possibly go wrong?
Well, this is absolutely wrong because the U.S. has been buying drones made by the CCP. Again, that is using our money to buy national security risk. So this is a concern raised by Rob Whitman, and he co-sponsored the American Security Drone Act, again calling the public attention to our adversaries of infiltration in this country through commercial products, like the company called the DJI Global. They produce drones, but they're 100% made by the CCP to use against our national interest.
And it's all types of devices, correct, Nicole? I mean, not only drones, but baby monitors, home security systems, and so forth. A lot of that's manufactured in China, correct?
Absolutely. And that's why we need to disengage, decouple from the CCP commercially 100%, because even in the consumer electronics consumer product, and people, like Costco, they're selling the surveillance program produced by the CCP, and that's why Costco has been forced to take off that product from the shelf, because people are buying, and Costco has so many stores across the country. And we don't want American households to be monitored by the CCP surveillance program that are purchased from Costco.
Should TikTok be allowed to continue in the U.S.? They're currently promoting anti-Israeli and pro-Hamas contents to American young people. So is this another way of indoctrinating and kind of hurting us from within?
Well, absolutely. They should not be allowed to exist in the U.S. Devices, but they are right now. TikTok is enjoining more than 100 million young users from America, and these young people are exposed to the CCP-controlled content to propagate hate against Israel. And there are so many anti-Israel and pro-Hamas contents being promoted on TikTok, poisoning the minds of the young American people, which is so concerning, because I'm sure you and I and many of your listeners are troubled by the hate speech across the U.S. campuses on colleges and universities. And there's a old Jewish man were actually killed in Los Angeles in the conflict. So this TikTok is promoting hate speech and violence in this country, and they shouldn't be allowed to exist. But unfortunately, due to the strong lobbying effort and the money, they have been paying millions of dollars to influence the lawmakers, trying to buy some time so that they can continue to stay in the U.S. But we already see the devastating impact of TikTok.
Nicole, so speaking about spying, there are comm systems. We were talking about phone systems that the CCP is using inside the United States. Can you share with my listeners what you've uncovered?
Absolutely. And maybe a lot of your listeners are familiar with the Huawei, which is a CCP-made telecommunication and 5G network. And they produce the competitors of iPhone or Samsung or Google phone. And remember, weeks ago when we were talking on your program, the CCP changed the Hamas militant group's cell phone to Huawei, and that's why it blocked the tracking of the Mossad and America's intel community. Now we have learned, guess what? There are over 24,000 American households in rural area are actually using the CCP-made equipment, such as the Huawei, for telecommunications. So this raises a big security concern for America's national security, because you can imagine every conversation, every text messages, everything that's being transmitted through that device or equipment will go back to Beijing.
So in the rural areas, and I mentioned this to you before you called in today, that the rural areas that I'm most concerned about are the rural areas at the Arizona border. So we have nothing but rural areas in southern Arizona. What is the likelihood at the border, where so many people are coming in right now, that this phone comm system is being used?
Well, great question. And so according to the news report, in 2020, 3 years ago, the Congress passed a bipartisan bill called the RIP and Replace program at the FCC, the Federal Communication Commissions, to reimburse those smaller communication providers across the country for carrying out the equipment manufactured by the CCP, such as the Huawei. And so they found out about 24,000 pieces of such equipment being used throughout the U.S., and they did not specify how many people from each state. But 24,000 pieces, that's a lot of U.S. households. And so Congresswoman from a Republican Congresswoman from Iowa, Ashley Hinson, on Monday, she actually worked with Mike Gallagher, the chairperson of the CCP committee, to introduce a bill called the Defend Our Networks Act, which will identify the funding, the budget. They need to find a budget to help those rural households to get rid of those equipment. So I think this is a very encouraging act to be passed by the Congress.